What's up, guys? I'm going to be doing a really quick video on the topic of finding a job and finding a job you love doing, and whether or not it's immoral or not sensible if you choose to find a job for other reasons, like to make money or because it makes you a lot of money. So my opinions on the topic is that it really isn't immoral. It really isn't like a problem. Like, some people are like, oh my goodness, are you doing this for money? I can't believe you. You're so shallow. You're just like a gold digger. But it's the other way around. You're looking for employment for money instead of finding a husband for money. It's the same thing. It's so bad. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, maybe to a certain degree when I was younger, I sort of thought that to a certain degree, but looking back on everyone I've met and my experiences, like, let's be practical here. This is something that's, like, it's more about survivability, and it's not as clear now with this modernized age, but back in the day, back when we were hunting with spears, I don't know if the ancient Chinese ever used spears, but regardless, we had to survive, and sometimes that meant performing tasks on a day-to-day basis, whether it be hunting or whatever, that may not be the most enjoyable thing in the world. Some people learn to enjoy these things, some people never did. And I mean, I know one person now, one of my pastors, well, my pastor's friend, she is fairly old now, and she's probably going to die hating her job, but she said that if she didn't have that job, she wouldn't know what else she could do to make money. And that's life. And no, she is not like an unintelligible or useless person. Like, just by meeting her, you can't tell. And that's another thing with people that I don't get. Like, a lot of people just judge based off of how they first see that person, which I think is preposterous. A lot of people do that to me. They judge me as probably the typical Joe, and I don't see myself as just the typical Joe in any sense of the term. I have a lot of passion and enthusiasm for what I do, and so how dare someone really judge someone else and just say, oh, that guy's going to be poor for the rest of his life, or that guy's going to be rich for the rest of his life, or that guy's going to be successful, when you can't really tell until you really get to know that person. So yeah, that's generally my whole opinion. And there's this quote by Warren Buffett. It basically goes something like this. Don't do something just to build it onto your resume. That's pretty much like marrying for money, and that's even stupider if you're already rich. Now, Warren Buffett, he's a big proponent of finding a job or employment that you love doing, because then you won't have to work a day in your life, and doing it otherwise is not the problem. I have to agree to a certain extent, but I also have to disagree. I agree with him when there are options between the choices. Will Smith makes a similar quote. He says something like, if you have two choices, with the higher paying job that you hate or the job that pays little but you love, go for the one that you love. And both of these guys have sort of underlying philosophies that support this. You lead to success if you are passionate about what you do, because then you get to the highest degree in your field, and the money will come from there because you're passionate about it, and therefore you probably rise to the top. Whereas if you hate something, even if it makes you a lot of money, you may not enjoy that for the rest of your life. I agree to a certain extent, and I wish I could, just agree with them flat out. But what about those exceptions? What if you don't have those options? What if you don't have jobs or things that you like doing that can make you money? Warren was lucky. He loved what he did, which was accounting and capital allocation, which isn't for everyone. Will Smith, acting, rapping, singing. But not everyone who loves being a rapper and dedicates all their time to it really make it that big. I mean, look at all the singers and rappers on YouTube who love what they're doing, but they're probably not going to make it big, or let alone make an income for what they're doing. However, there is a certain truth to the matter, and those who really put in the time every single day and grind it out usually will warrant some sort of income. The people who say that they do but don't make any money, some of them, not all of them, are lying. They're not actually grinding as hard as you think they are. However, the point is, the philosophy behind people like Will Smith, actor, singer, rapper, and Warren Buffett, billionaire investor, both of these guys, underlying what they're saying is that, like, if you do something you love doing, you have much more fun in the long run versus spending 8 hours a day at some job full time that you hate, and then trying to take that tragedy of a day and turn it into a wonderful day with the money you earned at the end of the day. A couple hours at the bar or a couple hours with your Ferrari, I don't think personally in the long run will surmount the hours and years of horrendous tragic work you do. But again, I think there's always a fallacy to this logic, because some people have to live within their options. Like, you can't be like someone who makes money doing just the stuff you love sometimes. Like, some people are just bums by nature, and they only like unproductive stuff, like video games, or watching TV, or sitting on their couch, or sleeping all day, or just hanging out with friends all day, or you get the point. And so, in a way, the pursuit of success, and because of that, the pursuance of money in certain factions, not all factions, that can be a positive thing. I mean, it forces you to get up off of your butts and do stuff. And whether you like it or not, there is a certain degree, quite a large degree in certain areas of the world, of how much money you make to how much success you make. Now, this obviously for me is not a correlation, but I think standards vary depending on what world you live in. If you live in a third world country, I think for me it may be a much bigger sense of achievement or success based on the amount of money you have. But living in a first world country, those sort of things where you're constantly chasing money and measuring yourself based on money can lead to a bunch of ruin. And on top of that, Warren Buffett is a person who has sort of accepted before he got rich, whether naturally or whatever, how he does not really garner happiness from money. Like his standard of living is fairly low, and he has formed a habit of his lifestyle where making more money or spending more money won't equate to more happiness. If you don't know, his life's very simple. He lives in a house that costs $30,000. He still lives there. First house he bought, I believe. It isn't even a largest house in his neighborhood. And what he loves doing every day, despite having billions, is sitting, reading newspapers, drinking Coke, and playing bridge, which is a card game. Like, that's his life. That's what he enjoys doing. And so, really, it's a very peculiar thing. And I don't think, I mean, for me personally, I've met at least 50 plus people who are pre-med or pre-dent in my college in probably the last 2 semesters. I set my goal to sort of meet new people of all shapes or sizes, regardless of however they're like, um, just to meet them. And because of my classes, a lot of them were pre-med, and a lot of them were either taking a year off to reapply after graduating, or they were in the process, they're still sophomores, or something in between. Um, and personally, what I found was that a good majority of them had the very same standard response to a lot of the questions I asked and talked about regarding why they wanted to pursue pre-med and so forth. Most of the time, to be perfectly honest, they were BS answers, very shallow, not sincere answers, about, yeah, I want to, I love teeth. I love the shape of teeth, and it was half-hearted and so forth. And their descriptions of their passion and reasons for pursuing this lasted a total of like 30 seconds tops. And deep down, I'm thinking, I I think I know why you guys are interested. Um, like it or not, there is some sort of monetary factor there. You're doing it for the money. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean everyone. I mean, I know for sure there are people who take that medical school degree and they don't use it to make money. They travel to Africa or China, and they're there working for free, curing people of limb disabilities and so forth. Um, I've experienced quite a few, and those people are heroes, and they don't do it for acclaim or anything. But a lot of people here, like, that is a thing, that it is true, whether you like it or not. I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's part of many cultures in a way. Um, I do think it's part of Asian and Indian cultures, but there's a huge stigma there for like a lot of cultures too, Caucasians included. But the point of the matter is, like, am I one to judge them and say, oh, that's bad, how dare you do it? Because whether or not it's 100% just for money or prestige or whatever, absolutely not. However, like, even them, they get the wrong impression of it, and I think that's something that should be fixed. I was talking to one person recently, and immediately she starts judging herself when I bring up the topic, because I wanted to see, and she's already sort of judging herself, not really sure, and it's like, honestly, I don't think it's a bad thing if you're doing it for money. It's a practical thing in certain ways, but more so, it's just a judgment of your perceptions in the long run. A lot of parents have sort of determined themselves that their children will be happier in the long run if they get a job that pays a lot. That the child may not enjoy doing at all, but they they think it will pay off in the long run for the child. Um, and I usually see this in middle class people in the United States, whereas like high class people, like millionaires or billionaires, they sort of let their children pursue whatever they want as long as it's somewhat productive. Um, and some of these children don't inherit a lot of money. I mean, they most likely inherit enough to survive and stuff. Probably a million or 200, but a million or 2 million. But you'll be surprised. Like Bill Gates' children and Warren Buffett's children, they're not inheriting that much. Like it's probably enough, like at least a few million. Um, but you'll find it very surprising. Like Paris Hilton too. They've sort of tried to make their, like, for Paris Hilton, like she decided to build her own business and empire, involving like $1 billion perfume industry and so forth. Because like a lot of these people with inheritance, they end up relying on their parents and constantly being scared that their parents will, one day decide not to give them any money. So it's actually a completely different thing. So I think it varies with class distinction on like what the majority of the parents think about the issue. Um, but I personally think it's not a matter of there's nothing morally wrong or not wrong with it. It's really personally just an objective, a logical decision. You weigh your pros and cons, and you figure out yourself: is it worth it? Um, because ultimately, in my opinion, everyone's looking for the ultimate amount of happiness in the long run, on average, from a day-to-day basis. Um, and some people think to themselves, "Oh, I'm going to slave away for these 10 years in med school or whatever, and that will be surmounted by the greater happiness I will get in the long run." Um, however, obviously, that's not always the case. And it's really just down to your pros and cons. I do think that there's definitely people, I'm not stereotyping here, there's definitely people I've met who, whether going to grad school or med school or whatever, they enjoy what they're doing. And for them, they win out on all sorts of levels. They're smart enough to get in. That's one of the hurdles you have to pass. Like freshman year in the first organic chemistry class, every freaking person of all sorts were there. You got sorority girls, pretty girls, guys from fraternities, and all sorts of people. And then like towards sophomore junior year, like a lot of them got weeded out. But like this, like some people, like it's just win all the way around. And I think it ascribes a little bit to luck, like luck of the draw and hard work. They were smart enough. They found something that they actually loved doing, and their time in med school, those 8 to 10 years of med school, residency school, and specialty school before finally becoming a doctor, they're gonna love that. So they never worked a day in their lives. But for me, I personally feel like there's a good large portion of people who I can just tell they they may be in it for the wrong reasons. And if they are, like, I wish them the best. They think it is for the right reasons. But only time will tell whether or not like it's worth it or not. Maybe, when they're 30 or 40 or on their deathbed, they'll think to themselves, maybe I shouldn't have done this. I spent 10 years doing something I hated only to, get a job, and the job's really hard, but the money's really good, but it wasn't worth it. I would have much rather follow my passion as an artist. It probably wouldn't have made a lot of money, but I would have had a lot more years of fun. And then there's the other flip side, where they're sitting on the deathbed and they're like, thank God I didn't, pursue artistry school. I loved it as a doctor. And there's all these sorts of things. Like my parents personally, I feel like they're on the side of, trying, like, doing jobs that they weren't the best. Like they didn't, like, make my parents skip to work each day, and because of that reason, they sort of pushed me or nudged me in a direction where they wanted me to make a lot of money, and it didn't really matter that much whether I enjoyed the job that much. And that's not a anomaly. I feel like a lot of parents, especially in the Asian ethnicity group, sort of do that. But at the end of the day, there's no way to stereotype every group. There's plenty of Asians I've met. Well, not plenty. There's a small amount who have, they've dropped out of any sort of science-related field, and they've come to terms with it with their parents and everyone else. There's a lot of diversity in every group. In the business school, there's Asians. There's like in every group, the music school, everything. So that's just something to take into account. And I honestly, after expressing all my opinions, I have to say at the end of the day, there really isn't a ultimate best answer. It's just working with what you have and deciding in the long run what will work best with you on a logical basis. And Warren um, is an example of how a factor of luck is always a part of the game. Warren, one of the quotes Warren has said, and it's actually a title of one of the books written about him. It's he says he tap dances to work every day. And another quote by him is that he wouldn't care if he was paid in seashells. So basically, he loves his job so much, and it was really just by luck that he made it. That this job made a lot of money. Another quote by him is that how school teachers get rewarded with an apple on their desk. I I get rewarded for my skill in capital allocation with profits of the billions. This was just a luck of the draw reward system that I was born into. So it's very something like that. Like sometimes there is just a factor of luck. However, personally, in my opinion, I do think that Warren would have made it rich regardless of where he went, because if you look at his life through his childhood, he was always into business and always looking at ways of making monies, from starting a pinball machine to delivering papers to creating a pinball business with like dozens of pinball machines throughout the county, to starting businesses and partnerships and so forth. I could go on forever. And selling Coke when he was a kid, buying it from the store and selling it to people in the street for twice the price. It goes on. So personally, I think Warren may in certain ways have been sort of against his grain and his sayings, because he had some sort of, whether it was a genetic gene in him or a subconscious proclivity to go where the money is, regardless of whether he enjoyed it or not. And maybe that may not be true. Maybe he enjoyed every part of the process. Maybe he just enjoys making money. And so I don't know. It's something really to think about. And just to wrap this whole video up, I know I've been talking forever. If nothing else changes, I think the one thing that should change is the amount of coldness and lack of enthusiasm and sincerity that I've come across upon the dozens and dozens of people I've talked to that are pre-med and pre-den and so forth. Now, this isn't always the case. Maybe it's just my school. Maybe it's just bad luck on my part. Or maybe they were just all in a bad mood. But obviously, there's a good portion that I met who fell into this category. And I don't know, like, to me, that just kills a part of me inside. Like what, like, if your whole life revolves around, like, this activity, like, literally these students at my college, like, they'll study and do these things, and like they'll do homework, and like that's a good majority of your life. Like, even in extracurriculars, like stuff you do outside school, like a lot of these people, they're in like pre-dental club or pre-med club. Like, that's a good majority of your life. And if you're going to spend it just wishy-washy, warm, cold, lukewarm about it, there's that quote from the Bible, you're either hot or cold. If you're lukewarm, I spit you from my mouth. And again, it kind of leads to a little bit of guilt, because like I can't say I'm super hot about Christ or whatever, but there is a certain amount of truth to that. And I don't know, maybe in time these people who are lukewarm weren't meant for med school anyways, and the application committee will single out most of them. And I feel like in a lot of ways they will. Like, of the people I've met, I mean, I'm sure a lot of these people who are lukewarm about it, they probably may have not got accepted. And a lot of them are, in fact, taking a year off and reapplying. But if you're lukewarm about it, I don't know, maybe the laws of science will filter you out yourself. But I mean, for those who get through, I'm just hoping that it is the best. I remember seeing like there's this page, and it showed all the pictures of the students in a department of a med school, and they were all med students, and most of them had the most like dull, like drone like faces ever. Like they're just dead. Um, and I mean, sure, med school is really draining and tough. I get it, but not one of them were really smiling that much. Um, and again, that's not always the case. I actually met a couple of them, and one of the girls was, she was quite great. You know what? She didn't have she was actually fairly cheerful, but I think if not anything else, that is something that should be fixed. Um, and whether or not it's a tragedy that it is how it is, I mean, that's kind of how life is, survival of the fittest. Not everyone can be a doctor or can make millions singing. Um, if they could, like someone that told me said, uh, if they could, they would. Everyone would. Everyone would apply to be a doctor and so forth. So it's definitely something to think about. And after this whole talk, um, I honestly don't know. I guess to wrap it all up, I stick with what I said at the beginning, which is just try your best with the options you do have. And personally, I'm leaning towards the side where if the option presents itself and you have choices between something you love doing that makes you money or something you may hate doing that makes you more, I'll go with the one I love. Because at the end of the day, a Ferrari or whatever, it's not going to change much. So that's all I gotta say. And as always, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, if you watch this entire video, leave a comment below. From my analytics, which I checked a long time ago, most people click out after like the first couple minutes of my videos. So for those of you who stay, I really do think that you only get the true value of this video by garnering all this information and watching till the end. So leave a comment so I can scroll through my video and just see, hey, that guy actually watched all my videos. That's really cool. And I thank you, and I hope this really imparted some sort of knowledge or something to think about. I'll see you guys later in my next video. Peace.